Once there was a girl a-running in a group. She had a high-speed motor in a 40 Ford coupe. She had a racing cam and a supercharged. Look at Buddy, hot rod at large. She's a hot rod. She's a hot rod.
You all know I've started off not being a big fan of Rivians, and then I had to eat crow because Rivian had some big sponsors, and they still do. They still have Amazon and Ford and somebody else. I can't remember who else. There's three of them that are big. But guess what? Let me just throw this out there and you decide. I'm not going to say one word way or the other. Rivian is struggling to ramp up production at its R1T pickup and R1S SUV of its two vehicles due to parts shortages. This is what they're saying. The slow ramp up and rising costs are hot topics for today's earnings report. Well, yes, they are. Although, didn't Toyota and Hyundai and Kia have banner years last year in America? Public sightings of Rivian's R1T pickup remain very rare, even in California, where the electric vehicle startup has their offices. Their home offices are there. They have a plant, though, in Normal, Illinois. The scarcity of the Rivian vehicles nearly 6 months after launch is one of several issues the young automaker is likely to address in its fourth quarter earnings report after the markets close on Thursday. Like the rest of the industry, Rivian now faces parts shortages and rising costs, but also a mood of distrust from early adopters who have pushed back on the steep price hikes. Rivian, you might remember, is the one that blew up their prices, said they had to charge more, and then they rescinded that and brought it back. Rivian said in December it had 71,000 customer pre-orders for the R1T and R1S. Separately, the company is making delivery vans for Amazon, a financial backer, of course. The automaker said it delivered 920 consumer vehicles last year, mostly the R1T pickup. That leaves a massive order backlog, I guess, for Rivian's plant in Illinois, even as it moves forward with a second factory location in Georgia. Updated production numbers are expected on Thursday. Again, everybody wants to be the first on the block, and they're announcing all this stuff real fast and real quick, and we got this and we got that, and we're going to do that, and we got all these sponsors, and the only thing we don't have is vehicles. One more shot. Rivian is posting a fourth quarter loss of $2.5 billion. Billion with a B, Eric. EV maker Rivian Automotive supported a quarterly loss of nearly $2.5 billion on Thursday, hurt by escalating raw materials costs and supply chain woes. The company reported a net loss of $2.46 billion in the fourth quarter, compared with a loss of $354 million from a year earlier in this quarter. It posted revenue of $54 million. Rivian shares tumbled 14% to $35.35 in aftermarket trading following the announcement. It'd be the time to run right out and buy them if I believed in them. In a letter to shareholders, Rivian said that even with supply chain constraints, the company believes it will have sufficient parts and materials to produce 25,000 vehicles this year. Without those parts constraints, the company estimated it would be able to build around 50,000 vehicles, including the R1T pickup and the R1S SUV, and the commercial vans for Amazon on the RCV platform. You know, Rivian, I had a granddaughter. Whenever I caught her with her hand in a cookie jar, I used to do that dance. You know, she had all kinds of things to tell me, and I'm hearing some strange things coming out of Rivian. And you want to know about the microchips? The chips, that's not the latest thing now. The chips are fading. Now that the pandemic has faded, the chips are fading. Now it's going to be the war. You watch. Auto Forecast Solutions added 13,100 vehicles to its weekly estimate of vehicles removed from automakers' production plans because of the global chip shortage. AFS, Auto Forecast Solutions, which has closely monitored the semiconductor crisis over the past year, said automakers have cut a total of 656,000 vehicles in 2022 so far, and that's up about 2% from its nationwide estimate a week earlier. But according to AFS, the additional cuts primarily occurred in European assembly plants with about 11,000 vehicles were axed there. The rest were in North America, where roughly 2,000 vehicles were cut from plans. Think about that. 2,000 is nothing. While the estimate is a positive turn for automakers after a year of production woes, the situation does remain volatile. Yeah, it remains volatile, all right. The chip shortage is it's going to be going away here shortly. But now we're going to have to deal with something near and dear to my heart. I got to talk to you about this, and you know what? It pains me at times. But what kind of effect is the Russian war having on us, or on the car business in general? And we talked about this. Of course we did. Last week we told you about the Russians have they mine or they create 95% or 98% of the neon in the world. And neon is the gas used to cool chips when they build them, when they program them. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are going to be upset here. Well, Mercedes has about 2 billion euros or 2 billion bucks or 2.2 billion bucks of assets in Russia that would be at risk if Moscow decides to expropriate the property of foreign companies that leave the country over its invasion of the Ukraine. And there are companies that are bailing. The disclosure comes a day after Russia outlined proposed measures to take temporary control of departing companies where foreign ownership exceeds 25%. If adopted, Russian courts could freeze the assets, giving the companies the option of restoring operations or selling their stake, which tantamounts to blackmail. Mercedes, and that's what Russia's good for. Mercedes is among a growing list of prominent Western brands to temporarily halt businesses in Russia. That's including Stellantis, Volkswagen, Ferrari, and Ford Motor Company. So yes, so far Mercedes is affected. Let's see what this says. GM is confident in their nickel supply. Russia is one of the biggest, or no, not Russia, but Ukraine has the nickel. Even as Russia's invasion of Ukraine increases the price of nickel, that's a key metal for electric vehicle batteries. General Motors CEO Mary Barra, God, is she still there? She hung on longer than I thought she would, is confident the automakers will find adequate supply over the next 3 to 5 years. In other words, General Motors has got an idea where the nickel is. Well, the ultimate solution is, while the chip shortage is improving, now we're going to be short of all of these special metals that we need. Lithium is big in Ukraine. Nickel is big in the Ukraine. There's just a lot of stuff big in the Ukraine. That's where all the natural resources that Russia ever had were. And when Ukraine broke off from them, now they want them back. Russia's invasion of the Ukraine is ramping up the price of metals in cars. From aluminum in the bodywork to palladium in catalytic converters to the high-grade nickel in electric vehicle batteries, and drivers are likely to pay the cost. You and I are going to get tagged again. Not that we haven't already paid the cost in the price of food, beverage, car parts, car vehicles to buy. While metals have not been the target of Western sanctions yet, some shippers and suppliers are already steering clear of Russian goods, putting more pressure on automakers already reeling from the chip shortage and higher energy prices. Yeah, right. Aluminum CMOL 3 and palladium XPD both hit record highs on Monday, while nickel CMNI 3, which is also used to make stainless steel, surged to its highest level since 2007. Consumers are already paying for the chip shortage as it has pushed car inventories down and prices up. No. Even before higher metal prices feed into the showroom. Well, about that time we'll quit worrying about the chip shortage and we'll be worried about the metals. According to the consultancies, LMC and J.D. Power, the average transaction price for a new vehicle in the United States was $44,460 in February. That's up 18.5% from the same month in 2021. So 20%. Figure 20%. Another fifth higher. Jeez. Automakers such as Volkswagen Group and BMW have already been hit by Russia's invasion of Ukraine as it forced makers of wire harnesses in the west of the country to halt production. In other words, there's no more production in Ukraine of the wiring harnesses. While production of 108 million tons a year, or with production of 108 million tons a year, Russia is the world's fifth largest producer of iron ore, according to Credit Suisse, supplying European steelmakers who now face higher prices and possible difficulties procuring the metal. So here we go. And of course, if it affects the steel industry, it affects the car industry. We're talking about what's going on in the car world and what's happening here and there. And we're going to get into some other stuff here in a little bit. But right now, I'm going to go with Stellantis is revealed an image of the Adventure brand's first electric vehicle Tuesday. Finally, during the rollout of the automaker's long-term strategic plan that covers the rest of the decade. Wow, that's a long-term plan. 8 years. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares said the electric crossover will support Jeep's worldwide quest towards zero-emission freedom. It's slated to arrive in the first half of 2023. The rush of zero-emission models will see the debut of a hydrogen-powered Ram heavy-duty pickup later in the decade. The electric Ram 1500 is slated to hit the market before then in 2024. The pickup will build on the progress it's making with hydrogen vans in Europe, Tavares said. Initial feedback on the vans has been positive thanks to the 3-minute fast fueling, 400 kilometers of driving range, and we already have a good level of orders. You know, I've always been, the hydrogen can go in those big trucks because you can run a fully internal combustion engine in those trucks, a big engine, and hydrogen will power it, just like gasoline. The only difference is you don't even need a catalytic converter. What comes out the tailpipe is water. Okay? And hydrogen is basically built with water and electricity. And I mean, I'd love to show you how it's done, but I don't think Eric would like that. The last time I tried doing that, my buddy the preacher told me, no, you take that stuff out of here. I don't want to know how hydrogen is made. That's not nice. Oh, well. Our Next Energy, that's a company. Our Next Energy, early storage developer, Our Next Energy said it plans to build a battery plant in the U.S. after raising $65 million in a new round of funding. Boy, they have these rounds of funding. Rivian's had a couple, plus an IPO. If they don't build any more trucks, they have squandered billions. The factory will be used to produce the company's Aries battery pack for 4 customers. The Aries battery pack. Now, I don't know. I got to research that and see what that's about. Our Next Energy, based in Novi, Michigan, is shopping for plant locations and has narrowed down the location to 4 unnamed states. They're not going to tell us. CEO Mujib Giaz told Automotive News that fact, that they're looking at 4 unknown locations, unnamed. The new investment will go toward expediting R&D in the company's Gemini battery, a company statement said. Our Next Energy said it demonstrated in December that the Gemini will have a range of more than 750 miles. I'm sure some of these battery companies don't want to hear that. Our Next Energy is eyeing a 2026 automotive launch for the Gemini, although the company is not yet under contract with an automaker to produce it. Well, let's see what Our Next Energy comes up with. Are they just a scam to raise money, or are they actually going to build a car? They're going to call it the Gemini. That should be unique. Now, really and truly, no unnamed states, General Motors plans to build a $393 million cathode active material, a CAM plant, in Bécancour, Quebec. Wow. I got a niece lives in Quebec. Did I ever tell you that? I always call her up there every once in a while to say yada or hate her.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she says yada or hate her when she answers the phone.
Yada or hate her.
And she's from here. adding Canada to its growing North American electric vehicle supply chain that will produce reliance on battery materials imported from Asia. In other words, we were trying to get away from all those precious metals they told us that we can't have. That's it. The automaker and its joint venture partner on the project, South Korean material maker firm POSCO Chemical, announced the facility will process metal for GM's Ultium batteries March 7th. Building a big plant. GM's doing it. GM and our supplier partners are creating a new, more secure and more sustainable ecosystem for electric vehicles, built on a foundation of North American resources, technology, and manufacturing expertise, says Doug Parks, GM's Executive Vice President of Global Product Development and Purchasing and Supply Chain. Wow. So GM is actually building a plant up there. And last but not least, and I knew this was coming, and I told you, we talked about this last week, I thought. Oh, boy. Scratchy here. Anyway, General Motors and PG&E, that I don't know what that stands for. PG&E, it's a company. I'd like to find out what that is, though. General Motors and PG&E plan to start testing the ability of General Motors battery-powered autos to supply electricity to a residence at a lab owned by the utility company. Oh, PG&E or Power, and Electric. Western U.S. utility giant, PG&E, that's who they are. General Motors are working together to see if electric vehicles can be tapped as a source of backup power for homes in Northern California. Why did you think it was going to be Northern California, Eric? This is where the land of the fruits and nuts. They're always out of power up there. I mean, if one grizzly bear in the woods passes gas, the next thing you know, we got no power in California and a couple of resounding states nearby. The project is being undertaken as California's state government pushes for greater adoption of electric vehicles in a region prone to frequent power outages, like I just told you, due to utility shutoffs from bad weather. 1 out of every 5 electric autos on the road in the U.S. are PG&E's service territory, the utility says. So 1 out of every 5 right now is in Northern California. Well, I got to tell you, that's where all the electric cars are, and you know what? That's where they are. What else can I say?